So today we had one of the more interesting NBA drafts in recent history. But before I wanted to get into just the big moves of that one, um, just wanted to complain a little bit about like all those fake Twitter accounts or those reporters who like to just um, I don't know, post. I don't want to use the phrase fake news, but that's literally what it is. There's just a lot of people on Twitter who think because they have a few followers that they can just post whatever rumors and try to gain traction to them and be very generic in what they're saying. Um, it's it's pretty annoying. I don't see why people believe um, reporters who just aren't credible. Um, I think. And yeah, so I guess that I just wanted to get that little bit out the way. So if you know a reporter that's not credible, just call them out on it. Don't follow them. Don't believe anything they have to say. And it's just yeah, just don't put stock into what they have to say. So in this video, I'm just going to talk about the major moves because every draft day there's a lot of minor moves of moving like second round picks and late first round picks to try to manage salaries a little better. Um, yeah, so we'll start with the first big trade involving this draft, and that was in Philadelphia's move with, I will be right back. My dog needs me for something. Yeah. Sorry, he just wanted my attention. Nothing big there. Anyways, the first move I wanted to talk about was the first move that happened regarding this draft. It was when Philadelphia moved up to get the first pick, and they switched with the Lakers, who had the the Celtics, who had the third pick. And in doing so, they had to either give up a conditional 2018 Lakers pick, and if this pick doesn't fall up in between the number 2 and number 5 spots for next year's draft. Instead, they'll have to send the 2019 picks of the Sacramento Kings. And so, yeah, this is another example of where there was bad reporting, where the first news that broke out with this said there were 2 unconditional picks attached to this trade. Obviously, that's not the case. But anyways, Phil, I guess this was kind of a good move on both sides. I'm scratching my head on Philadelphia's part more so than Boston's because while I do understand that teams like to move up in the draft, if they absolutely love a player, which is obviously how the 76ers feel about Markelle Fultz, I just think it's a really high price to pay because either one of those picks, the Lakers or the Kings picks, is going to be pretty favorable unless they have a miraculous season from their incoming rookies and then attract a big name player in free agency. But that's just too many conditions, and those picks are going to be really valuable down the line. So I'm scratching my head a little on Philadelphia, but if they love Fultz, then I understand where they're coming from. And then the next pick on the other side of it was the Celtics. They got the player that they liked, and they said, we'll get him at either 1 or 3. It doesn't matter. And this just stockpiles onto the lucrative amount of picks that they already have. And this will only give them more ammunition to trade for a big name player like Paul George, except that didn't happen today. So I'm a little disappointed in Boston on that side. I really think that they have to make a move. And I had another video just dedicated about why I think the Celtics should trade for Jimmy Butler and then Paul George if that's not the option. Jimmy Butler is traded today. We'll get into that a little more. But yeah, I'm a little disappointed that the Celtics haven't tried to capitalize on all their assets and tried to pick up another big name player. The next move was when the Lakers traded D'Angelo Russell and Timofey Mozgov to the Brooklyn Nets. And in return, they got Brook Lopez and the 27th pick of this year's draft. And I think this was a really good trade for both teams. The Lakers picked up an expiring contract that was worth $20 million. And then they unloaded on Mozgov's contract, which they committed to him a long time, and obviously he wasn't working out in LA. So it's good that they were able to get rid of his contract for rather quickly, only 1 year into his deal. And So what I really like about this is the expiring contract that the Lakers get. It's almost a forgotten commodity in the NBA because of um, how little value they've had in the last 2 years. And this is because the salary cap jumped in each of the last 2 seasons. And that completely changed the landscape of what the NBA market should look like. So now that the salary cap is plateauing, it's actually going down. If you look at this, the the luxury tax threshold, it goes down from 121 million down to 119 million. Pretty small difference, but it's nice that expiring contracts are coming or having value again because it helps the Lakers in the future for next year's free agency. Put that $20 million into another player that's incoming, and I'm assuming it's going to be Paul George. What is going on? And then on the other side, Brooklyn, they pick up D'Angelo Russell, who's obviously going to be the centerpiece of this trade. It's not, they didn't pay a big price to get him, and they're taking a flyer on a guy who is very, very touted, and a lot of people have really had positive things to say about his talent. And he's going to also be given the keys to the offense, so he's going to have any freedom to do whatever he wants. Now, if he capitalizes that on that, great. But it's also going to be his make or break year. So if he makes a lot of bad decisions, shoots too much, throws the ball away too much, it's really going to ruin his career. He's had a few seasons in the NBA to show what he's made of, but honestly, all he's shown is just flashes of brilliance. And if you out of a number 2 pick, you need to get more out of that. And so the Nets did need a shot in the arm because they've given up all these future picks, and they get a shot in the arm with Russell coming on board, but they shot themselves in the foot when they got rid of all those picks. So this is an interesting way to pick up a former number 2 pick. It's a nice move on their part when they're so strapped to do when they're so strapped as it is. Trade after that, Dwight Howard and the number 130 and the 31st overall pick shipped to Charlotte, and in return, the Hawks got Miles Plumlee, Marco Bellinelli, and their 41st pick. So Atlanta felt the need to move on from Dwight Howard. They're obviously hitting the reset button, and they also moved down 10 picks in the draft. They really needed to hit the reset button now, so there's a good thing that they traded Dwight Howard away, especially with Paul Millsap going in free agency. This team is just not ready to compete, and even in their glory days when they were the first seed, they and won 60 games, they weren't ready to compete. So it's good that they were able to unload Dwight Howard, but their return value honestly wasn't that great. Charlotte has to feel pretty good about this. All they had to do was give up Bellinelli's expiring contract, which honestly wasn't worth that much anyways, and a role player in Plumlee. His ceiling in the NBA seems to have been reached, and it's kind of a shame because it's his career so he's so short into his career, but he wasn't going anywhere with Charlotte, and they thought they needed to upgrade obviously to compete with Cleveland and Boston at the top of the Eastern Conference. And last year they had Al Jefferson, but they didn't seem to get what they wanted out of him. And Howard still has value as one of the better centers in the league. Feels like a good trade for the Hornets. Yeah, no, it definitely is. Howard is still one of the better centers in the league. His rebounding and rim protecting is still amongst the top. And his lack of offense is kind of disappointing. He still gets you 14, 15 points a game, which is nice. But it's a shame he never developed a post game because honestly, he was the best center in the league not too long ago. And he had potential to develop into a Hall of Famer, but because he didn't work on his post game and because he relied on his athleticism so much, which obviously went down after all those injuries, he never got to blossom into what he could have been. And yeah, Al Jefferson is a little bit slow. He doesn't really fit today's NBA game. He works best in a half court offense. He has a lot of nice moves, but just because the way the NBA's going, I don't think the big man will die. Also, another article I wrote earlier, but because he can't guard other centers or other big men, and he can't keep up and down, and these high pick and roll offenses that just love to shoot, he can't. He's a liability on the defensive end at this point in his career. The following trade was a low-profile move, but I really liked it. The Washington Wizards gave up their number 52 picks to the Pelicans, and they added some guard depth for pretty cheap. And outside of John Wall, they don't really have anyone who can handle the ball, especially now that Brandon Jennings is out. He's not on the team anymore, and they don't have to commit to him for any more than this year. It's only 1 year, and $2 million left on the contract, and this is good for the Pelicans too because they get to unload those $2 million, and it's not a lot, but they're already at $92 million for their payroll. So they won't have to give up they don't have much wiggle room in free agency as it is, and this helps them marginally in that sense. So now we're finally on draft day, and the first major trade was obviously the Jimmy Butler trade. And I don't know, the Bulls, they really questioned me. I feel like they could have gotten more out of Jimmy Butler, but Jennings is free agent, so he hasn't signed anywhere. Anyone can pick him up, but I don't think he's good for many offenses. Yeah, so going back to the trade, Chris Dunn, he didn't show a whole lot his first year. I was expecting more because he was just the 5th pick in the last draft. He's an okay defender, pretty bad on the offensive end. Zach LaVine will be coming back from an ACL injury, but because the way ACL injuries have gone in the past few years, it seems like almost every NFL and NBA player is getting it and then coming back stronger than they were. Fortunately, research and the medical field has picked up in that sense. And then the Bulls also got the number 7 pick, which they turned into, I'm not going to pronounce his name, Lauri Markkanen. But yeah, he's a solid player. He's very touted. Nice power forward, and they really needed that after picking up a guard and a forward. And I like what the Timberwolves here. They got a center with the number 16 pick, which they got in return, and then they got Jimmy Butler, who's one of the best two-way players in the game. I honestly think he's better than like Klay Thompson. So I would argue he's top 10 in the NBA. Sorry, are you asking what the current backcourt for Chicago is? I know Dwayne Wade picked up his what's his name? The player option, but he can negotiate a buyout. Yeah, it's a really weird lineup that they have. Rondo's actually a free agent though, so is he a free agent? Or I think he may get a buyout as well. No, you're right though. Their backcourt's really weird. I don't know. I don't like what they're doing. The term like AnJUL, he's a Bulls fan and he does all the boxing for us. We coined it fringe tanking. It's where like the Bulls can kind of use the excuse of, oh, we still have some good players to sell us enough tickets for you to come back. But then say, oh yeah, we're also picking up assets for the future and young players like Valentine and Markkanen. So that Bulls fans are excited for the future, except they're not committing to either doing a full rebuild or like a full tank, and they're just it feels like they're directionless, and because of that they're going to be stuck in mediocrity for a long time in my opinion. But I love this move for the Timberwolves. They have like 3 players who are capable of scoring 20 a game in Butler, Wiggins, and Karl Anthony Towns. Unfortunately for them, Rubio was actually the perfect point guard for them. Basically a point guard who's not worried about his own shots and is really good at running offenses. And so it'll be kind of hard to fill in that role. I can't, like, honestly, the only point guard in free agency who fits that, in my opinion, is Ricky Rubio and maybe like Chris Paul. And the Timberwolves do have the cap space to sign Chris Paul, but it's the Timberwolves are so young that yeah, the Timberwolves are just so young. It's going to be hard to attract them. Also, I just looked it up to clarify. I think I made a mistake. I thought I was under the impression Rubio was a free agent. It turns out he's not, and that he's under contract for 2017, all the way to 2019, which I didn't know of. So maybe yeah, this team is really filling out nicely. They just picked up another center. They have Jimmy Butler. They have Karl Anthony Towns. Um, Ricky Rubio at point guard, and then Wiggins at shooting guard. So it's a nice roster that they have. Um, Other headline news, obviously, the Lakers picked up Lonzo Ball. Um, I really liked what the Kings had to do this draft. They traded their number 10 pick um, to get the number 15 and number 20 picks from Portland. I was honestly expecting Portland or to pick up draft Monk from the number 10 pick, but they got Zach Collins instead. But then what the Kings did, they got Justin Jackson and Harry Giles. I really like Justin Jackson's game. He's a solid, not even solid defender. He's a really good defender. He's 6'8". He's pretty long. Um, his jump shot is, I guess I'd say it's decent. His mid range is nice, but I think his 3-point shooting, it's kind of hit or miss. All right, are we back online? Did it get to the part where I was talking about Jordan Bell? Oh, cool. Um, did I mention? Okay, no. Okay, so yeah, that was the kind of the last move I wanted to talk about. Hello. um, yeah, last move I wanted to talk about was basically Jordan Bell. The Warriors bought him from the Bulls essentially for 3.5, 3.6 million, which is a lot for a second round pick. But he was pretty early in the second round, number 38 overall. And he'll fill in really nicely as a backup center for the Warriors, especially because both JaVale and Zaza are free agents. So they picked up a guy who's basically averaged what, a double double and 3 blocks and all the in his NCAA games, the tournament games. He's got a high motor. He's great. He and basically everything the Warriors need in the center because they have so much offensive firepower from every other position that you don't need a center with any offensive game themselves. They just have to get rebounds, block shots, and maybe get some putbacks here and there. So yeah, the Warriors they got a nice backup center. I wouldn't trust him to start because I don't know. They're a team that's basically almost guaranteed that they're going to be in the finals and playoffs. And I just don't think teams with rookies in their starting lineups in the playoffs usually fare too well. It's a lot to ask for rookies. So I'd say like get him some seasoning, and then maybe if the Warriors continue like hold on to all their assets, all their big powerhouses, then they can move him into the starting lineup. But yeah, I think that's overall all I wanted to say. I'll field some questions and then close the stream from there. Anything you guys want me to go over? Who do I think had the best draft? I want to say the Kings. Um, like I mentioned, I like sorry, what, oh my god, I forgot his name. Justin Jackson. Yeah, I like Justin Jackson a lot. And then at number 5, they picked what's his name? They picked De'Aaron Fox, who's actually like I won't say he's the best point guard in this draft, but I would say he's my favorite. I don't know. He seems like a really hard worker. Got a lot of foot speed. A lot of foot speed. He's great defensively in isolation. His help defense has to improve, but that's just any rookie. His isolation defense for a rookie is phenomenal. He's got one of the quickest hands in the game. Pretty good vision. So yeah, De'Aaron Fox is my favorite point guard. They got him at 5. Then they got Justin Jackson, who I think is a pretty good asset. I don't really know a whole lot of Harry Giles, but he's pretty big. He's a big guy. He's like 7 feet, I think. He comes from a good program in Duke, so you can't really go wrong with that. In a late first round pick, getting a guy with size coming from a good program underneath a good coach, Coach K. So yeah, I would say the Kings had the best draft. Best draft day though, that will be tough. I will say I was hammering them earlier for not getting a deal done for Paul George, but I would say the Boston Celtics. Um, they still have a ton of picks. They got who they wanted, and every day Paul George is not traded, his trade value only goes lower and lower and lower and lower. So maybe they're just playing the waiting game with Indiana. I still hold by my guns that they were the team that needed to get Jimmy Butler. Because I really think Paul George, I don't know, I just can't see him staying long term in Boston. So yeah, maybe Boston had a pretty good draft day. I'd say Timberwolves are obviously up there because they got Jimmy Butler, and added a center. I wish I knew how to mute these. chats on my the iMessage on my Mac. I think I would say those two. The Kings and the Timberwolves were probably the best draft and best draft day. I'd say the Celtics still had a good draft day themselves. I'll sneak in the Warriors in there because they didn't have a pick, yet they still got one of like a player who really suited their needs. Yeah. Do I think Iguodala will leave the Warriors? That's a good question. So I would say for the past month minus the last 2 weeks, I was under the assumption that Kevin Durant is taking less money to retain Iguodala services and Livingston services. But Iguodala, he's going to have a lot of suitors. He's still a really good player. He's very versatile, contributes in a lot of different areas of the game. Good playmaking, good rebounding for his position. And he's not a rhythm shooter, but he can make his own shots if needed. And obviously one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. So he's going to have a lot of suitors who are trying to attract his services. And I've read online that he can get up to $20 million a year. And this is Iguodala's last chance of getting a big payday, so he may just take advantage of that. And that seems more and more likely. So I'm going to lean with yes, Iguodala would leave the Warriors. But yeah, it wouldn't be crazy to see him come back. Okay. Is that the last of the questions or no? All right, sounds good. Well, thanks for joining in tonight. About with the intermission. I still need to get all this streaming stuff figured out. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed it, and have a good night.